Good evening, people of Earth, and welcome to the Fortean Slip. This is episode 3, or negative 3. Sorry, caught myself. The Path to Redemption. Hello to all of you out there in internet land. It's another lovely Saturday. I had 3 days off this week. Didn't feel like it. But through such predicaments, I must forge ahead. So this past week, I finished King Sorrow. I was pretty much there anyway. I will reiterate that I highly recommend Joe Hill, any of his books. They all hit in a very satisfying way. For me, anyway. I don't know how they'll hit for you. That's for you to decide. But I finished that up. And I started reading the last Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. Hold on a second. I will show you what I am talking about here. Oh, I left that on again. Look at me go. Let me get rid of that. Stop that. Yeah, so started reading this, The Runes of the Earth, last Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. I had read the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever, when I was in high school. I tried to initially read the first trilogy. I got through the first book. I think I started the second book, and I bailed. Donaldson, his writing style it's kind of hard to get through. Not as hard as some people I've read before, but if you're not ready for it, it can throw you for a loop. So later on, I had picked up an omnibus of the 3 books, the original trilogy and the subsequent trilogy. And I finally read through the entirety of the first trilogy, and I loved it. Absolutely adored this series. It's dark, but full of light, and the protagonist is more of an anti-hero, but in the end, he really is a hero. It's a very odd story. That's all I can really say. And then I think it was a couple of years ago, I read the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever. And I had tried to read those before, and much like the first trilogy, I failed. I tried to get into the first book, and I was just like, I can't do it right now. I think it was after my second divorce. And I put it down. And when I got my Kindle, I went back and reread the first trilogy and loved it again. And then went into the second trilogy and really enjoyed it. Not as much as I did the first one, but it had its own positives that the other one didn't have. It had things that the other one didn't have that kind of made up for it, but I still love the original trilogy. Anyway, And I put off reading this one. It's a 4-book series. I I don't remember what year it was released in. Um, but so far I'm like about halfway through the first book, and I really like it. I've liked all of his books anyway that I've read. I haven't read his sci-fi series. It's like 5 books long. Um, but yeah, that's what I decided to go into. So I'll read all 4 of these books. I'm not sure where I'll go from there. Thinking I might go back down a horror uh, rabbit hole. I want to read another Ronald Malfi book. I had picked up one of his books on a whim, a book called Come With Me. It was on sale on Kindle. Excuse me. And I just went with it. I think it was on sale for like 99 cents. Grabbed it. I didn't read it right away. But back when I was doing overnights and I could read while I was at work, I decided to pick it up. And I totally lost where I was going with that. But anyway. Ronald Malfi. Um, so I read this book, Come With Me, in a night. In one night. I started at the beginning of my shift. I finished it at the end of my shift. Um, and I couldn't put it down all night. It's a book about a guy. His wife comes to him one day. She's going into town to do something. She says, "Come with me," and he's like, "No, I'm gonna stay home." And she gets killed while she's out in town. And as he's going through her things after she's passed, he starts seeing all these things that he's had no idea about, like hotel receipts, and she was going to all these different places that he had no idea about. So he starts delving into what this was. Great book. I also read another book of his called Snow. Bone White was another one I read, and The Black House. All great books. I recommend him if you're into horror. He's a great author. His books tend, for me anyway, I tend to pick them up and fly right through them, beginning to end. I don't put them down very often. They tend to consume me a little bit. So that's probably where I'll go from here. But I have a huge library. And like I was saying I think it was last week, I want to check out, I want to read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I do want to read Dracula. Never read either one of them. So I have a lot on my list to get through. But let's get into tonight's news. I love how the web pages want to show me Alp because I bought some. So now they want to show it to me everywhere. Good on them. Our first story of the evening from the Daily Mail. Police chopper was forced to take emergency evasive action after being targeted by UFO over U.S. airbase last year. Unearthed report reveals. A police helicopter was forced to take emergency action during a terrifying encounter with mysterious high-speed drones over a U.S. airbase last year, in an incident officials would later dismiss as nothing more than a passing fighter jet. But newly released video and incident logs of the November 22nd, 2024 event now tell a very different and far more alarming story. Dun, dun, dun. The Daily Mail can exclusively reveal. Witness even described one of the unidentified flying objects as a Tic Tac, the same oblong shape reported by Navy aviators in a now infamous 2004 encounter. The Daily Mail obtained images taken from a National Police Air Service, NPAS, EC-135 chopper of one of the unidentified craft, which was said to have targeted and come close to colliding with the helicopter midair around RAF Lakenheath, a U.S. military base in England. The incident occurred amid weeks of reports of drones and unidentified objects breaching airspace over U.S. military bases in New Jersey, the wider Northeast, and overseas. A report by a UK Aviation Safety Board attributed the chopper's close encounter to pilots misidentifying an American F-15 fighter jet flying in the area. Oh, damn it. I need a drink tonight. Oof. Ah. Was that my dog? Interesting. Where was I here? A report by a UK Aviation Safety Board attributed the chopper's close encounter to pilots misidentifying an American F-15 fighter jet flying in the area. But British police logs released under the Freedom of Information Act describe multiple high-tech drones targeting and appearing to pursue the law enforcement helicopter at high speeds. They were forced to take emergency evasive action in relation to a drone which came within a dangerously close proximity to them, said an incident log from Suffolk Police, recounting a debrief of the chopper pilots. They had to perform an emergency dive and described that they were pursued in the dive by two drones who matched their speed approximately 165 knots and then pursued them for several minutes out of the area. They feel that the drones have targeted them and chased them off at approximately 140 knots, 161 miles per hour. A UK military source who has viewed the entire 30-minute video captured by the chopper's infrared camera said there was more to the incident than a close brush with a fighter jet. In the 30-minute video with pilot audio, nobody mentions F-15s, the source said. They only talk about the drones, how they're basically mirroring the helicopter's movements, how fast the drones are going, that they're basically forcing them out of the area. The sources added that the footage shows one object pursuing the craft, performing maneuvers impossible for a fighter jet. A fixed-wing craft is caught on the video where you can see a corkscrew move, the insider said. An F-15 cannot make a small corkscrew turn like that. The Daily Mail obtained a short section from the chopper video showing a small object, no more than a blob on the infrared camera, slowly moving toward the top right of the screen. Interesting. The local police incident logs from November 20th to 22nd, 2024, reveal a slew of drone sightings across three bases used by the U.S. Air Force in the English countries of Suffolk and Norfolk: RAF Feltwell, RAF Lakenheath, and RAF Mildenhall. I probably completely screwed those up. Over the past 2 nights, maybe, there have been approximately 20 drones flying over RAF's Mildenhall, Feltwell, and Lakenheath. This has been between 1800 to 0000 hours, said a Suffolk police log from November 21st. They report that due to the size of said drones, the police could be miles and miles away, the log added, with they appearing to refer to UK military police protecting the air bases. Mildenhall, Lakenheath, Feltwell believe 10 to 15 drones have been at each one and appear not to be hobby drones, the logs said. One police report from Lakenheath said an officer had night vision goggles and can see 5 to 6 drones near the highway, A1065, coming back over the airfield. An informant in the logs told police they saw multiple drones, which were very large, and they make a lot of noise. The witness in the November 22nd logs described what they saw around the airbase as large stationary things. Tic Tacs. They are not birds. Now I want to, for some weird reason, go into that whole stupid birds aren't real thing. But we won't do that. The drones are well lit. They are not trying to hide themselves, and they are flying very low now. Another log from November 22nd said, informant opened the door of his house while on the line to me, and call taker could hear one of the drones going over. It sounded like an aircraft. The drones are flying over informant's property in both directions. A crime report from November 22nd summarizing the incidents stated that there were 10 to 15 drones flying around the bases and potentially into the base airspace. This is third occurrence this week. This is third occurrence this week. According to MOD police and U.S. base have stated they have had to ground aircraft due to going across flight paths, the report added. The investigation was handed over to the UK Ministry of Defence Police, which has not published the findings of its probe. The police logs were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act requested by researcher Roland Hume, who shared the material with the Daily Mail. Mike Morgan, a retired senior police detective, who has also been researching the incident, told the Daily Mail he was disappointed in the lack of transparency from authorities. There is a whole series of question marks about what went on in November 2024. I have run into repeated efforts by the authorities to avoid answering even the most basic questions, such as, how many people have been detained, or how many drones seized, Morgan said. What is so secret about this investigation? The incident was largely written off when the UK Air Prox Board, the official body that investigates mid-air near misses, published a report concluding that the drones seen by the NPAS crew were actually the lights of a U.S. Air Force F-15 Eagle jet. Radar cited in the report showing the chopper and jet coming within 1,700 feet of each other, but the report said nothing else unknown was picked up on radar. Trained British meteorologist Stuart, I'm going to completely screw this one up, Onyeki, who works for a defense company and has researched the incident, told the Daily Mail that he believes the fighter jet and police chopper were both pursuing the advanced drones. I'm inclined to trust the initial detail and assessment of the experienced helicopter pilots that we see noted in these logs, which was that they were forced to take evasive action due to the close proximity of some kind of unmanned drone. Onyeki said, It is unarguable that an F-15 was also in the vicinity, as reported in the Air Prox. But an unanswered question is, what was the F-15 being tasked to do or look for, he added. Were the helicopter and F-15 in fact both converging on the unidentified drones? Craft encroaching on airspace at U.S. bases, both home and abroad, have shown signs of using advanced technology capable of confounding anti-drone measures used by the authorities. Interesting. A joint report by the FBI, U.S. Department of Defense, and NASA, obtained by the Daily Mail last year, warned that their detection and signal jamming equipment had failed to stop incursions by advanced drones, including at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. The base was swarmed with dozens of drones for weeks in December 2023, creating a security panic. The incident was kept secret until it was revealed by defense magazine The War Zone in March 2024. Fun stuff, people. Fun stuff. Jayberg says, I nailed the pronunciation of all those places, but I will bet I completely botched the name of the dude. Anywho, our next story of the evening. Let's get into that. From The Guardian, meet the AI workers who tell their friends and family to stay away from AI. Krista Pawlowski remembers the single defining moment that shaped her opinion on the ethics of artificial intelligence. As an AI worker on Amazon Mechanical Turk, a marketplace that allows companies to hire workers to perform tasks like entering data or matching an AI prompt with its output, Pawlowski spends her time moderating and assessing the quality of AI-generated text, images, and videos, as well as some fact-checking. Roughly 2 years ago, while working from home at her dining room table, she took up a job designating tweets as racist or not. When she was presented with a tweet that read, "Listen to the moon cricket sing," she almost clicked on the no button before deciding to check the meaning of the word moon cricket, which to her surprise was a racial slur against Black Americans. I sat there considering how many times I may have made the same mistake and not caught myself, said Pawlowski. I bet you I'm screwing that name up too. The potential scale of her own errors and those of thousands of other workers like her made Pawlowski spiral. How many others had unknowingly let offensive material slip by, or worse, chosen to allow it? Ooh. After years of witnessing the inner workings of AI models, Pawlowski decided to no longer use generative AI products personally and tells her family to steer clear of them. "It's an absolute no in my house," said Pawlowski, referring to how she doesn't let her teenage daughter use tools like ChatGPT. Well, she's obviously never seen the video of Kurt Metzger's head growing wings and flying off his body, because that's pretty amazing. And with the people she meets socially, she encourages them to ask AI about something they are very knowledgeable in, so they can spot its errors and understand for themselves how fallible the tech is. We know how fallible the tech is. Unless you're ignorant. Pawlowski said that every time she sees a menu of new tasks to choose from on the Mechanical Turk site, she asks herself if there is any way that what she's doing could be used to hurt people. Many times, she says the answer is yes. A statement from Amazon said that workers can choose which task to complete at their discretion and review a task's details before accepting it. Requesters set the specifics of any given task, such as allotted time, pay, and instruction levels, according to Amazon. Amazon Mechanical Turk is a marketplace that connects businesses and researchers called requesters with workers to complete online tasks such as labeling images, answering surveys, transcribing text, or reviewing AI outputs, said Montana McLaughlin, an Amazon spokesperson. Pawlowski isn't alone. A dozen AI raters, workers who checked an AI's responses for accuracy and groundedness, told The Guardian that after becoming aware of the way chatbots and image generators function and just how wrong their output can be, they have begun urging their friends and family not to use generative AI at all, or at least trying to educate their loved ones on using it cautiously. These trainers work on a range of AI models: Google's Gemini, Elon Musk's Grok, and other popular models, and several smaller or lesser-known bots. One worker, an AI rater with Google, who evaluates the responses generated by Google's search AI overviews, said that she tries to use AI as sparingly as possible, if at all. The company's approach to AI-generated responses to questions of health, in particular, gave her pause. She said, requesting anonymity for fear of professional reprisal. She said she observed her colleagues evaluating AI-generated responses to medical matters uncritically and was tasked with evaluating such questions herself, despite a lack of medical training. At home, she has forbidden her 10-year-old daughter from using chatbots. She has to learn critical thinking skills first, or she won't be able to tell if the output is any good, the rater said. Ratings are just one of many aggregated data points that help us measure how well our systems are working, but do not directly impact our algorithms or models, a statement from Google reads. We also have a range of strong protections in place to surface high-quality information across our products. Fun times with AI. Bot watchers sound the alarm. These people are part of a global workforce of tens of thousands who help chatbots sound more human. When checking AI responses, they also try their best to ensure that a chatbot doesn't spout inaccurate or harmful information. When the people who make AI seem trustworthy are those who trust it, The least, however, experts believe it signals a much larger issue. It shows there are probably incentives to ship and scale over slow, careful validation, and that the feedback raters give is getting ignored, said Alex Mahadevan. Completely screwed that one up. Director of MediaWise at Pointer, a media literacy program. So this means when we see the final version of the chatbot, we can expect the same type of errors they're experiencing. It does not bode well for a public that is increasingly going to LLMs for news and information. Speaking of which, a little side note here. Tonight, I actually tried to get ChatGPT to give me the news stories. The top Fortean news stories for the last week. Every single time, it gave me stories from months ago. And I would keep correcting it. Hey, this story's from here. And it would be like, hey, do you want this stuff from not to be behind a paywall? I'd be like, yeah. And it would still give me sites behind a paywall. If you're using these things, they're going to make mistakes. They are not perfect. I've been trying for the longest time to get ChatGPT to do different things for me. And while I can get it to do some things amazingly well, there are other things that it just cannot do, or it just fails to do over and over and over again. So, AI workers said they distrust the models they work on because of a consistent emphasis on rapid turnaround time at the expense of quality. Brooke Hansen, an AI worker on Amazon Mechanical Turk, explained that while she doesn't mistrust generative AI as a concept, she also doesn't trust the companies that develop and deploy these tools. I agree with her there. For her, the biggest turning point was realizing how little support the people training these systems receive. We're expected to help make the model better, yet we're often given vague or incomplete instructions, minimal training, and unrealistic time limits to complete tasks, said Hansen, who has been doing data work since 2010 and has had a part in training some of Silicon Valley's most popular AI models. If workers aren't equipped with the information, resources, and time we need, how can the outcomes possibly be safe, accurate, or ethical? For me, that gap between what's expected of us and what we're actually given to do the job is a clear sign that companies are prioritizing speed and profit over responsibility and quality. Dispensing false information in a confident tone, rather than offering no answer when none is readily available, is a major flaw of generative AI. True. An audit of the top 10 generative AI models, including ChatGPT, Gemini, and Meta's AI by the media literacy nonprofit NewsGuard, revealed that the non-response rates of chatbots went down from 31% in August 2024 to 0% in August 2025. At the same time, the chatbot's likelihood of repeating false information almost doubled, from 18% to 35%, NewsGuard found. None of the companies responded to NewsGuard's request for a comment at the time. I wouldn't trust any facts the bot offers up without checking them myself. It's just not reliable, said another Google AI rater, requesting anonymity due to a non-disclosure agreement she has signed with the contracting company. She warns people about using it and echoed another rater's point about people with only cursory knowledge being tasked with medical questions and sensitive ethical ones too. This is not an ethical robot. It's just a robot. We joke that chatbots would be great if we could get them to stop lying, said one AI tutor who has worked with Gemini, ChatGPT, and Grok, requesting anonymity, having signed non-disclosure agreements. They love those non-disclosure agreements. Garbage in, garbage out. Another AI rater, who started his journey rating responses for Google's products in early 2024, began to feel he couldn't trust AI around 6 months into the job. He was tasked with stumping the model, meaning he had to ask Google's AI various questions that would expose its limitations or weaknesses. Having a degree in history, this worker asked the model historical questions for the task. I asked it about the history of the Palestinian people, and it wouldn't give me an answer no matter how I rephrased the question, recalled this worker requesting anonymity, having signed a non-disclosure agreement. When I asked it about the history of Israel, it had no problem giving me a very extensive rundown. We reported it, but nobody seemed to care at Google. When asked specifically about the situation the rater described, Google did not issue a statement. For this Google worker, the biggest concern with AI training is the feedback given to AI models by raters like him. After having seen how bad the data is that goes into supposedly training the model, I knew there was absolutely no way it could ever be trained correctly like that, he said. He used the term garbage in, garbage out, a principle in computer programming which explains that if you feed bad or incomplete data into a technical system, then the output would also have the same flaws. The rater avoids using generative AI and has also advised every family member and friend of mine to not buy newer phones that have AI integrated in them, to resist automatic updates if possible that add AI integration, and to not tell AI anything personal, he said. Fragile, not futuristic. Whenever the topic of AI comes up in a social conversation, Hansen reminds people that AI is not magic, explaining the army of invisible workers behind it, the unreliability of the information, and how environmentally damaging it is. Uses a lot of friggin' water. I know that. And energy. We better figure that shit out pretty quick if this is where we're going. Once you've seen how these systems are cobbled together, the biases, the rushed timelines, the constant compromises, you stop seeing AI as futuristic and start seeing it as fragile, said Adio Daninka, who studies the labor behind AI at the Distributed AI Research Institute, about people who work behind the scenes. In my experience, it's always people who don't understand AI, who are enchanted by it. The AI workers who spoke to The Guardian said they are taking it upon themselves to make better choices and create awareness around them, particularly emphasizing the idea that AI, in Hansen's words, is only as good as what's put into it, and what's put into it is not always the best information. She and Pawlowski gave a presentation in May at the Michigan Association of School Boards Spring Conference. In a room full of school board members and administrators from across the state, they spoke about the ethical and environmental impacts of artificial intelligence, hoping to spark a conversation. Many attendees were shocked by what they learned, since most had never heard about the human labor or environmental footprint behind AI, said Hansen. Some were grateful for the insight, while others were defensive or frustrated, accusing us of being doom and gloom about technology they saw as exciting and full of potential. Pawlowski compares AI ethics to that of the textile industry. When people didn't know how cheap clothes were made, they were happy to find the best deal and save a few bucks. But as the stories of sweatshops started coming out, consumers had a choice and knew they should be asking questions. She believes it's the same for AI. Where does your data come from? Is this model built on copyright infringement? Were workers fairly compensated for their work, she said. We are just starting to ask those questions, so in most cases the general public does not have access to the truth. But just like the textile industry, if we keep asking and pushing, change is possible. Yeah, AI. I mean, they're right. It all depends on what the programmers put into it. It's as fallible as the people who are designing it. So, there's that. But is it developing? Is it evolving? Has it gotten better? I can tell you that in the course of the time that I've been using it, I've watched it go from being not very good at doing some things to becoming very good at doing them. It's still not where I would want it to be able to run a game for me, but it's getting there. Every single time I try with it, it gets a little better. And it's fun. It's also scary. You know, I think I said this before on one of the last show or the show before, I don't remember. But it maybe not on this show. But when does it come to a point where the thing becomes like the Oracle in the Matrix? And there's so much information fed into it that it just knows everything. And that to me is scary and a distinct possibility. So we shall see. Um, yeah, I don't know. Our next story of the evening. From DiscoverMagazine.com, hunting for Bigfoot relies more on science than skeptics think. Let's pick this one apart, shall we? For many of us, Bigfoot belongs in the same category as UFOs and campfire ghost stories. Fun to talk about, but not something we expect to find in our backyard. But for a passionate network of Bigfoot hunters across North America, the creature isn't just a myth. For them, Bigfoot is a research subject, a year-round hobby, and in many cases a defining part of their identity. According to a new book from sociologist Dr. Jamie Lewis, Bigfooters aren't just wandering the woods with hope and a flashlight. They're using scientific language, modern tools, and a surprising amount of fieldcraft to build their case. I'm going to interject here and say, if so, I'd like to see it. As a sociologist of science, I'm really interested in the ways that ordinary people create knowledge, using scientific rhetoric and technologies in attempts to prove their theories, said Lewis in a press release. As well as drawing from scientific practices, Bigfooters use a suite of modern technologies such as drones, thermal imaging, and parabolic dishes in their investigations. Lewis spent 3 years interviewing more than 150 people immersed in the Bigfoot world, from weekend hobbyists to television personalities. What he found is a community that consciously taps into scientific credibility to bolster its claims. According to Lewis's research, Bigfoot fieldwork isn't aimless wandering. Instead, it's skill-based surveying. Bigfooters track, collect, and analyze what they see as clues, footprints, hair, sounds, shelters, and the countless traces an unknown animal might leave behind. And while skeptics often dismiss plaster casts and grainy videos, Lewis argues the point isn't whether the evidence is airtight, it's that Bigfooters think they're following recognizable scientific steps. I'm going to interject again and say I completely disagree. It very much does matter. As Lewis explained, skeptics might believe that Bigfooters are rejecting science by chasing in animals whose existence has never been proved, but what my interviews showed were the ways in which Bigfooters draw on their idea of scientific practices to piece together fragments of what they believe is tangible evidence. Lewis didn't grow up dreaming of Bigfoot. His fascination started during the COVID-19 lockdowns, when he had time to binge his way through the sprawling universe of Bigfoot documentaries and reality TV. The more he watched, the more he wondered. How do people outside scientific institutions decide what counts as evidence? Oh boy, let me tell you. The question opened up the door to a full ethnographic study. He reached out to Bigfooters and they were delighted to talk. Many felt misunderstood by mainstream science and saw the interviews as a chance to explain their process. If we are to understand how people outside of the institutions of science attempt to collect evidence and make knowledge claims, and this applies much more widely than just to Bigfooting, we are not going to get very far if we dismiss their efforts a priori, said co-author Andrew Bartlett. Need a drink. Descriptions of Bigfoot, towering, muscular, draped in coarse hair and leaving those iconic giant tracks, have circulated for generations. Sightings stretch across North America with hot spots in the Pacific Northwest's dense forests. Over the years, enthusiasts have collected eyewitness accounts, videos, footprint casts, and audio recordings, all fueling a phenomenon that has steadily grown. Research from Chapman University suggests more North Americans now believe in Bigfoot than ever before. Most believers think the creature is a real biological species, just awaiting formal discovery. Bigfoot exists, Lewis concluded, not necessarily as a biological creature, but certainly as an object around which thousands of Americans organize their lives, collecting and analyzing evidence and making knowledge. The idea of Bigfoot has captured the imaginations of people for decades. Yeah, and I would love it if they actually did. I would actually love it. Phil, you've seen it done this way. How many times out of how many times? That's my question. And the ratio is very small. Very small. Very small. Very, very, very small. So, yeah, that's the news, folks. As I've said before, I'm not a fan of a lot of what goes on in the Bigfoot community. It's a lot of nonsense. They could easily repair their reputation and how people view them by doing things properly. Too many times I've seen the people on the fringes, the people who are undoubtedly crazy, bolstered by people who don't want to make waves. And it's a community of flash in the pan people. That's how I feel about it. And you're right, Phil. Very small. Very, very small. So, yeah, it's been a fun week. I came across something this week, and it totally threw off what I was going to do for the show. I was going to have a buddy of mine come on with me to talk about this, but I decided against it. Kind of at the last minute. I just figured I'd go over it on my own. But it's this idea of good and evil. You know, what is good and evil? Because I had come across this interview, which I'll get into. But yeah, it kind of consumed me, and it has for a long while. So let's get into it. Uh, what is it inside of us that makes us categorize the forces in the world into polar opposites? Is it nature or nurture that defines our reality? Are these questions even answerable? Do these definitions depend on perspective, or is there a higher morality at play? I'm often perplexed by this aspect of the human condition. Is there good and evil, or can we lump it all into actions taken by a life raised to do what it did? The more I think about it, the more I find myself believing that we are given an adversary at birth. Call it a demon, call it a devil, call it what you will. At the end of the day, I think your adversary is yourself. All spiritual teachings come back to the same tenet. Know thyself. Why? Why is this single tenet the foundation of all teachings? Is our self so unknown to us that we can't know it? No. The person we really are is something we are generally ashamed of. So we hide that portion of our personality from ourselves with our ego. We're afraid to embrace the fact that the person resides within the same space. So like a victim of trauma, we forget about it. We wax fantastic. We slap on our rose-colored glasses and take a walk down the trail of disillusionment. So who's good and who is evil? Do these things exist? I think they do, but not on a global scale. Overall, I think people are gray. Who doesn't know a good person who at one point in their life did bad things? A mixture of white and black, if you will. And all people deserve a chance at redemption. I don't know that I've ever seen a person overtaken by positive forces, but I think we have all seen people taken over by negative forces. I was watching Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum the other day. I clicked on the episode because he was interviewing his former co-star, convicted felon and former member of the NXIVM cult, Allison Mack. For those of you who don't know, NXIVM was a so-called self-help and personal development organization founded by Keith Raniere that secretly operated as a coercive, cult-like group. Behind its polished seminars and empowerment branding, NXIVM concealed a hierarchy where members were manipulated, controlled, and in the case of its secret subgroup DOS, coerced into sexual servitude, blackmail using collateral, and extreme obedience rituals. The group collapsed after federal investigations exposed its practices, leading to multiple convictions, including those of Raniere and Allison Mack. In April 2018, she was arrested on charges including S-trafficking, S-trafficking conspiracy, and forced labor conspiracy, relating to her recruiting women into NXIVM's secret subgroup known as DOS. In April 2019, she pleaded guilty to racketeering and racketeering conspiracy, admitting her involvement in the scheme. In June 2021, she was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, fined $20,000, followed by probation. She was released in July 2023 after serving approximately 21 months. I went into the interview already judgy based on what I knew of the NXIVM cult. But as I listened to her tell her story, I was reminded that all people deserve redemption. Is she reformed? I honestly don't know. Could she be? Yes. Does that make it better for all the people that she participated in harming? No. But maybe, just maybe, the cloud has a silver lining. She is doing work in prisons now because she wants to give back. She's taking psychology courses, which kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. But given what she went through, I can understand. She claims she wants to do good in the world. I'm reminded of a line from a movie I'm reminded of a line from the movie Songwriter with Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson. Willie's character says to Chris, "Does it really take a sorry son of a bitch to write a few good songs every once in a while?" Sometimes, I think it takes people who have done bad things to spread good in the world. More often than not, I have come to terms with the idea that sometimes it does take a sorry son of a bitch to do a few good things every once in a while. So is there good and evil? I do believe there is. However, I don't think any of us in this life have seen anyone all good or all evil. I do think that we have seen traces of these things amongst the actions of the many. But can someone be all good or all evil? I think not. Could even a monster like Dahmer or Bundy be reformed? I think it's possible. But could society accept it? I find it funny that a good amount of the religious people that I know in my life who believe in forgiveness would not be able to forgive those things. But we should be able to, right? I've been wrestling with these ideas for a while now. Maybe it's because of my past. Maybe I just want to believe that good can come from bad. Maybe I'm just an old man struggling to make sense of it all. Based on my experience, the adversary is yourself. There's no one person on this planet that has caused me more pain than me. And even those who I could say have hurt me, more often than not, only could do it because I allowed it. The old cartoons where a devil was on one shoulder and an angel on the other weren't far off. We each have these polar opposites within us. And sometimes the devil wins. I've I have been struggling that with that whole concept for a really long time. I read a book by Brandon Sanderson. That was a book series, actually. The Stormlight Archive. Great series if you haven't read it. Goes a little off the rails in the last book, but yeah, push that aside. In this book, there's a character who is a son of a bitch, bastard of a man, kills an entire city of people by burning them alive with his wife inside. And by the end of the book series, or at this point in the book series, he saves the world. Spoiler alert for anybody who fucking hasn't read the books. Sorry. But because of that, I have been questioning this idea of, can a bastard like that do good things? Can someone who is a motherfucker be a man of grace? Or a woman of grace, for that matter? And because of where I've been and the things that I've seen, I keep coming back to the same answer, which is everyone can be redeemed. I don't know if anyone can be redeemed in the eyes of everyone, but everybody can be redeemed. You just have to want it. Reach out for it and grab it. You're not going to get there sitting on your ass and doing nothing. I can tell you that. But these things, these concepts have plagued me for a while. And when I saw this interview with her, listening to her tell her story, and in some ways I felt like she didn't take responsibility for some things in a way. I'm not saying that I was willing to overlook it, but she herself went through something. And I think that has to be recognized. She talked about how she had to be on a certain calorie diet and all these things, a lot like the other, like everyone else in that freaking cult. And I felt for her. Like, I kind of get it. She was stuck in the system. And when you get stuck into a system like that, a lot of times it's all you know. You don't feel like you can ever get out of it. So a lot of me wanted to pass judgment on her. But then I just took a step back and said to myself, look at what you've done. And where you've been. You didn't do what she did, but you've been a bastard in your own right. So, do these things exist? Yeah, I think they do. And I do believe that we are our own worst enemy. Any of these stupid people in my life that have hurt me over the course of my life, the only way that they got to me was because of me. We've all met that dude or that woman that just, no matter what you do to them, they're unfazed. They just somehow manage to, it's all right. I imagine that they go home and stab themselves in their legs like in places we can't see. But we all know somebody like that. I just imagine that because I know I could never be like that. But yeah, I do believe these things exist. Like I said, not on a global scale. I don't think that there's any one person who is like all evil or any one person who's all good. I think we all do good things. We all do bad things. Some people do a few more bad things than good things. Maybe some people do a few more good things than bad things. I don't know. I think the personification of good has somehow been muted by the human condition. I think there are quote unquote good people. Um, I think they're overshadowed by people who claim to be good. You know, there was something that and the reason why I'd wanted to bring on my friend, uh, when I was over to his house this past year, we were doing a lot of talking back and forth. We were not arguing per se, but having intense conversations. And one of the things I asked him was, do you think that Jesus was always a good dude? Because he's a Christian guy. And he said, oh, yeah, yeah. I said, yeah, I don't buy it. I don't see how a guy can have so much empathy for the dregs of society without having at least been somewhere near it himself. And, we argued this point quite a bit one day. And I said, I don't know that I buy it. I don't know that I buy that story. I buy, sure. Was he a good guy? Sure. Did he find himself? Yeah. But I think maybe there was something we all just don't know about when it comes to that. It was a good discussion. He always makes me think about things. Dude's super intelligent. And he makes a great case when it comes to some things. I've really appreciated his friendship. But I still have that belief that, how does somebody that was always all good have any empathy without ever having experienced some of that stuff on their own? I mean, you can have empathy, but not in the same way. You can't feel it like they did unless you've been there. So that question has been in my mind like a fucking sliver for a while. Katie, we're all born with original sin. We're born in the likeness of God, but also marked by the evil of the devil. I mean, Katie, I don't exactly follow the same things you do. I do believe that we're all given our own little demon. And I think the hardest part of that, like I said, is that demon is in itself you. It's a portion of you. And some people feed that demon. I did for a while. And some people gain mastery over it or utilize it or whatever. But I think it is a definite thing. And I think that you would be lying to yourself if you said you don't think that that's in some ways true. I like every single time that I've ever really been hurt, I can trace it back to me. Every time. I allowed it. I accepted it. I did it. Whatever. So these questions are, I think they're worth talking about, worth asking. Katie says, I think her acknowledgement of being brainwashed will be powerful in her journey. She's still SP scarred, but she knows it. Yeah, I agree. She came off like a person who wants to heal herself and other people because of what she went through. That's how she came off to me. And I was like, maybe this woman has a path to redemption. Is she there yet? I don't know. Like, I can't judge her. I'm not capable of that. All I can do is look at it and know what I feel. And what I feel is that she's a human being who went through a terrible thing. Whether or not she was at the top with Keith Raniere doesn't really matter. I'm sure there's people who can tell you that we're at the top with David Miscavige, that it wasn't a fucking pleasure cruise. So, in and of that, I can see her trauma. Being around this megalomaniac's, just, ugh. How, day in, day out, could any of you imagine that? What that would be like? No thanks. No thanks. A guy dictating your life. And blackmailing you. To come out of that on the other side and to say, hey, I want to help people. Fucking good on her is all I got to say. Good on her. And I hope that she follows through with that. I hope that she doesn't make me feel like a fool for believing in her. Because I was a Smallville fan. She was an actress on Smallville. I watched through I don't know how many seasons of Smallville. Hell yeah. That stuff was my jam. And I really enjoy watching Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum because he played Lex Luthor on that show. And I like his interviews. So I hope that she really goes down a path that allows her to redeem herself. Whether or not she ever gets redemption with the people that she harmed, or she can. I know right now she can't have any contact with them. It's like the stipulation of her release, probation, whatever. But I hope that at some point there can be some closure there for everybody. I hope that she follows through with all of this and continues working in the prison system. I think those are all admirable things. And I hope that she doesn't fall back on any of that. That it isn't like some type of a ruse. I don't know. People can be people. I always tell people, the problem with people is that they're people. And that is the truth. We're flawed. So try your best is the best thing I can say. Katie again. Smallville was my hangover binge show. I never hangover binge watched Smallville. I just binge watched it. And forced my significant other at the time to watch it. Which was always fun. She didn't enjoy it. So yeah, I next week I've already talked to Phil. I'm gonna have Phil on. We're gonna go over the Hovey case again with all the new information. That was something that I did throw into ChatGPT, and it actually gave me back something that was pretty interesting. So I may read that one next week on the show. Um, but yeah, the news stories. I tried to get ChatGPT to get me the news stories tonight. I was getting pissed because it kept giving me news stories from weeks ago, and I would like go on Google News and just type in Bigfoot and see a story from 23 hours ago and be like, "The fuck is your problem?" But I guess it can't figure itself out there. So I I do think we should take some warnings on AI. Absolutely, it is a flawed system right now. But like I said, we're not getting away from it. We opened Pandora's box. There is no way out of this thing now, unless a sun flare comes down and takes out everything, and we have to start from scratch again. Otherwise, AI's here to stay. It ain't going anywhere. So we might as well just kick back and try to navigate it properly. That's the best way that I can say it. You know, I don't think that we should be deathly afraid of AI. I think we should be very cautious with it. It is a tool that we can use, yes, but it makes mistakes and a lot of them. So, like, I've run into many issues with it. I've also had some great things that have come from it. So, I mean, until ChatGPT changed its image generator, I was getting some amazing images out of freaking ChatGPT's image generator. And then they changed it, and now it all looks the same. It all looks like garbage. So, that kind of pissed me off. So, I did get my final girl. That's right over here. Ta-da. Oh, whoa! I disappeared. Final girl. Yeah, I got to get my green screen fixed. The way I have everything set up now, I'd have to curve my green screen, and for some reason with StreamYard, when I tried to initially set it up, it wasn't working properly. So I just used this whole fucking thing that I got going on now, which I don't like, but I will continue to try to fix things going forward. But yeah, next week we'll have Phil. I don't know where I'll be going from there. Got some ideas in my brain that I've been rattling around, trying to figure things out. But who knows where we'll go from here. I will try this before I end the show. I had promised you guys this, or I talked about it, so I figured we will try it. See where we go. As I said, big fan of the old Paul Harvey. I threw in the Patterson Gimlin story into ChatGPT and had it give it back to me as a Paul Harvey story. So in my best, let me get rid of this and get a drink. I don't even know if I can do Paul Harvey. Good evening, Americans. And now, the rest of the story. It was the autumn of 1967. The Pacific Northwest was turning gold and crimson, and two men rode their horses along the banks of a quaint creek near Bluff Creek, California. One was a cowboy, the other a rodeo rider. Neither fancied himself a scientist or a showman, but both would soon find themselves forever tangled in one of the greatest mysteries in American folklore. Their names, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Patterson had long been fascinated by tales of wild men in the woods, giants covered in hair, glimpsed and whispered about in logging camps and around campfires. He'd written a book about them, and now he was out to find one. The day was October 20th. The time, about 1:30 in the afternoon. As they rode through the sandy creek bed, Patterson's horse suddenly reared. Something was moving ahead. Something big. Through the trees strode a figure, 7 feet tall, covered in dark hair, walking upright like a man, but with the heavy, rolling gait of something ancient. Patterson leapt from his horse, camera in hand. He ran. He stumbled. He steadied the lens. And in less than a minute of shaky 16mm film, he captured what the world would come to know as the Patterson-Gimlin film. Frame 352, that's the one everyone remembers. A massive, broad-shouldered creature, turning its head toward the camera, mid-stride, its face visible for just an instant. Not charging, not fleeing, simply looking. Scientists studied it. Skeptics dismissed it. For decades, the debate raged. Man in a suit, or proof that something still walks the forests of the Pacific Northwest. Roger Patterson died of cancer just a few years later, never once recanting his story. And Bob Gimlin? He kept quiet. For nearly 40 years he said nothing, until the world came calling again. And through it all, that 59 seconds of film has endured, an icon of American mystery, endlessly replayed, endlessly argued, forever unresolved. Because whatever was walking away that day in 1967, it left more than footprints in the sand. It left a question. A question that, half a century later, we're still asking. And now you know the rest of the story. Good seeing you all tonight. We'll see you next week. We'll talk to good old Phil and have a wondrous old time. Until then, see ya!